Hey folks, Phil from the future here. I think the most technical and interesting rounds of this league are rounds 4 and 5, so if you're on a limited time budget, check those ones out first. And please consider throwing me a like or a comment on this video. The modern stuff needs a little extra support to be successful. Alright, enjoy the show. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for the Rare Modern video. Today we're going to be jamming some modern death and taxes. So for those of you who haven't followed my content for a long time, or maybe who are just kind of hopping onto one of my videos for the first time, I was kind of like a real big legacy D&T guy. I wrote a lot of the literature on the deck, had a website for the deck that I maintained very regularly for years and years and years. So I was excited to get a donation to give modern D&T a go. And this was the deck list that was submitted to me by user Truth Cult. And I want to say that while I know Death and Taxes and like these cards like the back of my hand, I don't know the modern metagame as of right now. So I'm going to speak with great authority on some things and great uncertainty on other things, and I'll try to clarify which is which. So, I have made some edits to this deck list, and I want to talk about why I made some of the edits that I did. The first thing I always look at when I look at a Death and Taxes mana base, or sorry, when I look at a Death and Taxes deck, is the first thing I do is I look at the mana base, and I think the mana base here is awful. Don't mean it as an insult, but I wouldn't be caught dead playing this mana base. And I'm just going to move these out of the way for a second. This is the reason why. 9 of the mana sources in this deck list do not produce colored mana in your deck that needs to produce white pips. And if you are missing out on playing something like a Skyclave Apparition on curve, it is a really big deal. In addition to that, Castle Ardenvale is going to enter tapped a huge portion of the time. Because, again, a huge portion of these aren't plains, and then 2 more of your other white sources are not plains either. So, this is a land that is going to lose you the game a good portion of the time. You don't have any source of big mana. You know, there's no ancient tombs, no Nykthos, nothing of that nature here to really make Blaststone better than it is. So most of the time, Blaststone is going to destroy things with a CMC of 1. Well, guess what? That's going to eat a card that is incredibly central to your own deck list. And it also will potentially eat, your primary protection spell, or your Hatebears, or your way of dumping your Cauldra into play. I don't think Blast Zone is worth it. And if you look at how little actual removal is in this deck list, I don't think you're going to force a Mishra's Factory through a good portion of the time. So the first thing that I did with this deck list is just rebuild the mana base. So this is my edited mana base. Essentially, I've just gone up a handful of plains and added 1 Aganjo Castle. You want to keep some amount of utility in your mana base for those times when you do flood out. But I don't want more colorless utility because I'm already playing with 6 colorless lands. And while you can get away with that, Legacy D&T gets away with 8 for Schadenport and 4 Wasteland in the 60-card version. You don't necessarily want to press it. I've opted to switch all of my lands to snow-covered plains here as well. This is to bluff on thin ice. In Legacy, you usually want to split them between plains and snow-covered plains because of opposing predicts targeting you. You just don't want to give them like 20 hits for, the same card name. Other than that, I've mostly left the main deck as is. I have cut 1 Touch the Spirit Realm for 1 more Leonin Arbiter. If we're going to build the mana base essentially around Leonin Arbiter, I want to lean in and have the full 4, despite the fact that it does have negative synergy with our own Stoneforge Mystic. As far as the sideboard goes, I am comfortable saying with certainty that this sideboard is wrong, but I don't know how to fix it. And let me explain what I mean here. When I think of Modern as a format, I think of an incredibly wide format. Now, there's a handful of decks that always rise to the top, but Modern has a ton of decks that are technically viable. And when I look at this sideboard, I see something that is incredibly skewed towards interacting with the graveyard. I don't think you get to dedicate 7 slots to Graveyard Hate, even if they do have like varying bits of overlapping utility in this format. And like there is that overlapping utility in that like you have 5 pro red creatures that you can bring in for certain matchups like burn. But I think this is too skewed in the direction of Graveyard Hate. The other thing is there's 100% too many pieces of equipment in the sideboard, while things like Sword of War and Peace or Sword of Light and Shadow like certainly have their place. When I think of equipment in Modern, what comes to mind is I spent 3 mana on a piece of equipment, 2 mana to try to equip it, and then my opponent for 1 mana lightning bolted and took away 5 mana worth of my actions. So I'm like very much not excited about playing most pieces of equipment in Modern. Like I probably want access to 3 pieces in the 75, and I don't really think these 2 swords belong in the sideboard. But I am not familiar enough with the Modern metagame to know what those slots should be instead. So my generic recommendation is change those for something else. I don't know what that something else should be. It probably should be generic removal, your Path to Exile sorts of things. But again, I don't really know what's popular right now to formally make that call. But we'll try them out and see how they feel, and if we throw Sword of War and Peace on a cool creature and get a couple of kills with it for my nostalgia, I wouldn't mind that. Alright, with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the matches here. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. If you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Alright, this hand doesn't have 2 lands, which is almost always going to be an auto mulligan. Unfortunately, this one is at, well, we're starting on 5, which is not great. I'll be keeping this hand. We're dumping a Thalia and Touch the Spirit Realm. We have 3 different solid turn 2 plays depending on what we think we need to be doing. I need to draw a 3rd land. Oh, they're playing Mill. Oh, Vile's so good. Literal perfect top deck there. Sorry, I don't think I finished a thought. I need to draw a 3rd land before Arbiter plus Ghost Quarter. Sounds like this super awesome thing. Also, apologies in advance. I'm going to have a cough drop in for this round. My throat is a little scratchy. Is this a cycle? Okay, yeah. 14 is a lot of cards. All right. File goes up for sure. Surgical Extraction on Ghost Quarter is super unfortunate. Okay. There's a billion ways to play these turns. I think all 3 of these plays are defensible. I am going to play Leonin Arbiter. It makes my Stoneforge Mystic more awkward, but there's a good chance that my opponent plays something that ends up just milling my, not Solitude, my Cauldron anyway. And if that happens, Stoneforge Mystic is close to a blank. So I am going to kind of continue disrupting my opponent and making their life more awkward rather than trying to just win the game immediately. Giver is fantastic. I think I tap this now, but I don't know what removal spells I need to be playing around. So this means in future turns, my Hatebears and my Stoneforge will be protected, and next turn I can vial in a Stoneforge. Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, I can vial in a Stoneforge and pay the tax to get Cauldron, and then really start getting some stuff done. Alright, Field of Ruin. That is very unfortunate since I do have my own Leonin Arbiter in play currently. My plan may have to pivot to just do a lightning bolt or so worth of damage per turn cycle. Fractured Sanity. Okay, there goes the Cauldron. Alright. Always yield to that. Not use that ability. Make a land drop. I'm thinking about whether or not I'm holding Giver of Runes back or whether or not I want one more point of damage. I think I have my opponent's resources taxed heavily enough that I do just want one more point of damage. Yeah, this is fine. Only 19 cards left in library. That's not great. It's going to be 18 once I pull one out. I think I just passed the turn here. So if I Stoneforge Mystic on my own turn, I can guarantee that I always get my Sword of Fire and Ice. But then I'm more exposed to this Field of Ruin blowing up my land and making it so that I can't possibly go play and equip next turn. Oh, sure. And without doing the math of it, I think there's a very large number of basic lands remaining in my deck as my primary draws from here. Yep. Good old Ancestral. Legal and modern. Okay. I lose the Arbiter for making my attack with Giver for the extra point of damage. We'll see how that ends up shaking out. Let's do the thing. Brings me down to 15 cards. I could also Lion's Sash. That better. So 4 of my draws are lands that I need to just play and equip Sword immediately. Lion's Sash may just be a more consistent source of damage. It always does 4 damage next turn, instead of sometimes doing 4 damage this turn. If I get Sword and I don't draw the land, I physically cannot cast it. I have Stoneforge, that's fine. I guess both are 4 damage next turn, but out on some value. I'm going to grab the Lion Sash. If I grab Lion Sash, I can attack with more creatures. We will leave Vial at 2. We're on a Flicker Wisp. Let's just go ahead, say yes, put this in. I think I'll funnel all of my mana into it. I think I continue attacks just like this. Alright. My opponent playing around another Aganjo. Oh, that's real bad. That's a land drop. Mills me for 6. Field of Ruin is another 6. Oh, Fractured Sanity is just 14. Yeah, that's fine. I will concede. I needed one more attack step. Yeah. So I had it if my opponent didn't kill me there by pumping 6 mana into Lion Sash, making it a 7/7, giving this pro blue so it always hits, and then Flicker Wisping 1 Ruin Crab out of the way for lethal. So I don't really have sideboard cards for this. I can play one more piece of equipment if I'd like, just so I don't run into everything getting milled, but I guess also having Lion Sash is okay. Sword of Light and Shadow is really good utility if the game drags on, and it's a way to recur Solitude. Is one of my few actual removal spells. Just very slow. Same with Touch the Spirit Realm, like its removal is just slow. I don't know that I'm actually going to sideboard. I think I'm going to get rid of Sword of Fire and Ice for Batter Skull. It's just another piece of equipment that has a more immediate board presence impact on the game. It's a great 6-card hand. I just kind of assume that the Caldra does nothing most of the time, but Thalia into Archon is pretty annoying. We're hoping not to see turn 1 Crab, and we did dodge there. Solitude is respectable, but not necessarily overly exciting. Sure, that's fine. Alright, sure. That's fine. I think I play this land first. We'll go ahead and drop the Archon. At the rate that I'm going, Solitude might be a thing that gets hardcast this game rather than pitchcast. Yeah, that's fine. That allows them to successfully get their fetch in under Archon. I am not going to hold this back in order to potentially use it as a spell later when I have a Solitude that I can hardcast once I get to one more land. For sure. think that is a bad fetch, unless my opponent specifically has Fatal Push, because this only makes non-basic lands enter tapped. They do have the Fatal Push. Field is no big deal. Okay, that's fine. Pick up a Plains. I think I just Stoneforge with Touch the Spirit Realm up this turn, rather than play the Disruptive Archon. I think I grab Batterskull, given how much mana that I am at, rather than Lion Sash and just play it out immediately. Yeah, that's fine. My opponent's hand is so much noticeably weaker than last time around. Like, it's turn 5 and I have more cards in my library than my opponent does. Does not bode well for the mill deck. Surgical Extraction on Flicker Wisp. Yes, that is fine. Okay, this is a cool one. Do they? Oh, it's Exile. Sure. Okay, that got a decent number of cards. All right, there is a new land drop. I don't know exactly what I need to be playing around here, but this seems fine. Like, if my opponent bounces the Cauldron, I just put that back in. I don't think I have to worry about a board wipe, because it's unlikely that a board wipe answers all this stuff at the same time, since the Germ token is indestructible. There is a crab. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think I just touch the Spirit Realm, that crab, and then use the remainder of my mana to activate a Stoneforge Mystic again. Goodbye, crab. Yeah. 7 damage incoming, and that, in theory, is lethal next turn. Yeah, I mean, Tasha's is good. 27 in library, just a 14 in library. All right, and then there's a concession. Yeah, I think I'm in the no further sideboarding camp. Hands with Vial are good. My opponent starts with a crab. I'm going to make this game considerably harder than the last one. But I'm just kind of hoping that the... Oh god, that's worst draw in the deck. Alright. Anyway, just kind of hoping that the mana advantage that I get from having an early Aether Vial will offset everything else here. But this is not great. Plan is kill my opponent with Cauldron. And see where that goes. Cauldron, pass turn. I need my draws to not look like these, or the Aether Vial keep to start looking good. Yep. Yeah, so like in comparison now it's turn 3 and going to be at 32 cards remaining in library. Sorry, 31 because I just fetched one out. Okay. Well, that is horrifying. Another Field of Ruin coming as well. Again, need actual live draws here, which I am not succeeding at doing. Like so it goes. But I am not necessarily on track to racing my opponent with Cauldron. I have a 4-ish turn clock, emphasis on the ish. My opponent probably kills me in 2 turns, a decent portion of the time. Like Tasha's plus land drop plus Field of Ruin, for example. Probably does gross things. Yep. L9 on the land drops is brutal. Alright. Yeah, that's just, yep, another 18. I expect that I am dead on my opponent's next turn. I'm going to have 2 cards left in library. And, like, Silent Clearing can't be used for a redraw. Any land drop kills me. Basically, any spell, any land drop kills me. So I don't think there's any possible way I'm still alive. Yeah, so after an Aether Vial keep, we drew Vial, land. And can't possibly have lethal damage next turn. So I will concede. Alright, we have a respectable hand that has 3 different 2-drop plays, although Lion Sash is my least likely 2-drop play in a vacuum, unless I suspect that my opponent is playing a graveyard-oriented deck after turn 1. Black Cleave Cliffs, Ragavan, and Fury. Sure. Okay, that's fine. Alright. My opponent is just going to have a 4/4 double striker on turn 1. I will eat that. So, do I want to disrupt via Thalia, or do I just want to play Stoneforge, get Caldra, and hope that works out? I think I'll disrupt, do this, and I'll Solitude pitching Flicker Wisp on the Fury. Alright. Follow up removal spell. You can have 4 life. Playing the Thalia just makes it less likely that my opponent can either double spell or do another elemental shenanigan thing. And if my opponent uses their turn to sorcery speed, get rid of a Thalia. Or no, sorry, wrong Ganjo. Never mind. Strike that. Apt Blood Crypt. And a Ragavan. I always drop the planes. I don't have matchup experience to know for sure here. But it seems like with the Thalia in play, this is reasonable. I'm going to pick up the Caldra, though I'm not actually convinced that's right. I'm going to go ahead and hold back the Thalia. Anytime you can stop a Ragavan from connecting, generally a good idea. Fetching Sword of Fire and Ice is better if I'm willing to chump block Ragavan with Stoneforge Mystic if Thalia is removed. Alright, land drop from my opponent. Followed by Terminate on Stoneforge. That's fine. A new Stoneforge Mystic is obviously a pretty ideal draw. We'll grab Sword of Fire and Ice and pass the turn. Again, I don't need to be doing chip damage with Thalia. I need to make sure Ragavan doesn't connect. Ragavan is notoriously pretty bad versus Death and Taxes style decks that just have like 30 plus creatures in them. Fantastic. So I am just going to go ahead and put in the Caldra and start going to town that way. But I think there's actually arguments for other lines. Alright, take 5. And I'm going to go ahead and play out Lion Sash. This makes me worse against a top-decked Fury in particular, but it makes me... I'm surprised they didn't activate Castle Lockway end of turn. But it makes me better against single removal spell. Again, all I want to do is make sure that Ragavan is not accumulating mana and cards. Alright, seems like my opponent has another turn of not really accomplishing anything. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to use my mana for Sword of Fire and Ice or Lion Sash. Alright, my opponent sat there for a couple of minutes. I asked them if everything was okay, and then they just conceded. Okay. So how do I want to approach this? Cutting off red removal is reasonable. I can also do some amount of this stuff. And some of this stuff is reasonable as well. This is where I don't have the matchup experience that I need to innately know what angle is best. I imagine that, like, the mana denial portion of the deck isn't nearly as impactful, especially on the draw. And I instead care about, like, removal and evasion and equipment. At the same time, I maybe don't want to go too deep on removing creatures. Like, I still need to be able to block Ragavans. This gives me a bunch of stuff that blocks Ragavans. Protection from Fury, which is nice. And then from here, I'm not really certain. Thalia clocks my opponent in a way that something like Soulless Jailer won't. I don't want to play Containment Priest. It shuts off my own vials. I go down 1 Flicker Wisp and call that good. I'm still at 30 creatures, which is my starting amount, but I'm very uncertain about sideboarding here. Like, it may be that I'm overly concerned with Fury because it's the board wipe, and not concerned enough with Grief coming back instead. Okay, this hand has too much mana and is an auto mulligan. This hand is not great. I don't know that I want to go to 6. And primary question here is, like, do I want the 4th land or do I want the vial? Keeping the 4th land makes a lot of the Stoneforge based plays more viable. The vial is not doing anything with this hand as it stands, but potentially does some stuff in the mid game. I think I'm going to keep the 4th land in hopes of potentially using the Solitude as a 5-mana spell. Because I realistically can't Solitude pitching it to Stoneforge Mystic. Like, that just leaves me with Stone Cold nothing. Alright, there's a Shock. There's a Grief. Pitching a Sheoldred's Edict. Is creature or planeswalker. Right, it can also force a sack on a token. Okay, yep. That's annoying, and that draw isn't particularly great afterwards. They just want gas. Alright, I'm officially at the point where I am poking my opponent in the chat, like, please, can you try to speed things up a bit? I'm so bored. Alright. Giver of Runes is something I can do that doesn't just immediately eat a Terminate or whatever. Not a particularly strong card, though. Like 4 more in combat. And then put in Giver. Like so. Doesn't really need to be done now. Giver can't protect itself. File goes up. That can just be done at instant speed. I'll eat 4 more damage to the Grief in combat. That has Menace, so I'm not blocking it as of right now. Yeah, sure. I think this does go up here. We touch the Spirit Realm. I'm casting that. And I think I just have to remove the Grief. The Grief is a 2-turn clock. The Dauthi Voidwalker is a 3-turn clock. The Dauthi Voidwalker has Shadow, which is a bigger problem long term, but if I don't take out the Grief, I'm always dead next turn if I miss on a draw. Whereas I have a couple of draws if I leave Dauthi Voidwalker on the board instead. The Dauthi Voidwalker is just a little bit scarier with all the Bane Death type cards. Alright, let's say always no to that. Field of Ruin is not what I am looking for. I will go ahead and bash on in. I'm just going to leave, maybe I don't leave it in play. One's holding back Dauthi Voidwalker. Interesting. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Guess I'll thin my deck of a land here. Yeah. Off of red for fury purposes. I thought I always yielded to that. Always no, always yield. That's really fucking good. Sword. I eat it to an edict here. Bam. Oh, did I just get away with murder? I just got away with murder. I will take out the Dauthi Voidwalker. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Thank you for the extra card. I appreciate it. Sure, that's fine. A very good draw for my opponent. I'm going to think about that for a second. There's advantages to doing that now and advantages to waiting. Terminate's fine. Only prevents 2 legendary creatures. Thalia is cool. Get my opponent for 5. Play Thalia. Thalia is protected from some degree of removal here. Tarok's not bad. As a pro-white creature, notoriously difficult for me to answer. And hopefully I just dodge a lightning bolt and everything is okay. This is pro-black. This can still go ahead and crash in. I am dead to a lightning bolt. Otherwise, my opponent's probably dead on their next turn. But yeah, that's fine. Turn. Activate this. Yes. Skyclave. Skyclave. Exile. Dauthi Voidwalker. Yeah. Alright, I am playing against a Giganta deck. I don't know exactly what that means in this format. My hand is decisively medium. Urza. Okay, sure. File goes up. Having access to Ghost Quarter is cool. Corrupting Ye Old Urzatron is nice. I think I can remember Giganta. Ideal draw would be probably a Leonin Arbiter or a Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. I'll go ahead and do this. put in a giver, which I think is just rumbling. This goes up. Yeah, I think I just rumble with giver. I don't know enough about my opponent's deck. I assume there's some red removal in there, but I don't know what I'm working with, or rather working against. Puts my opponent to 17 after both sets of damage. We'll go ahead, Ghost Quarter a tower. That's fine. I wonder if I was actually supposed to wait till their upkeep to do that so that they can't crack Relic end of turn. I think that's a micro misplay on my end. Okay, sure. And Stirrings is fine. I'm worried that I am not going to pressure my opponent quickly enough to actually kill them before they reassemble the Urzatron. File goes up to 3. Nothing that I have going on here is particularly exciting. I think I just need to continue to pressure my opponent. If they have the last piece of Tron here, my life gets tough. Yep. Alright. I am going to continue to try to be the sad beatdown deck. No targets for Skyclave here. I will be ticking this up. Just going to send this to 5 so that I don't have to pitch cast the Solitude. Send him. Brings opponent to 9. Oh, it's so unfortunate that I ticked that vial up and then drew Flicker Wisp. Tap one of my lands. Now I'm in the range where, like, the Oblivion Stone, Ugin sort of things can just happen. Yep. Yep. Oh. We'll go up. Send those in. So, here is where we see my opponent's error. So now I get to touch the Spirit Realm, this Flicker Wisp, and save it, which I could not have done if they just did this normally. Now, at my end step, I return the Flicker Wisp, and I get to blink out one of their lands. I'll be blinking out their tower, knocking them off of the Urzatron for a turn. So my opponent got greedy with their Oblivion Stone. They should have just taken it. I'm not sure that it's going to matter. Like, just being real here. Fine. Don't know. Is Ensnaring Bridge legal in this format? Unsure. Big Walking Ballista is a problem. Field of Ruins, neat. Does this enter tapped or untapped? Puts it onto the battlefield. Neat. Let's kill Karn. Nice. Field of Ruin. Blow up a tower. Get a plains. And I think I'm just going for this. I think I Lion Sash. Lion Sash is white. It pitches to Solitude. Because if my opponent has any land, not just an Urza land, any land is 6 mana to just kill all of these things immediately. And the Kaldra is incredibly strong if they don't have the land, and then basically dead if they do have the land. Yep. Uh-huh. Are you just going to trade for the Stoneforge as well? We are not. Debating whether or not I just want to Solitude that immediately. My opponent took such a gamble. I did not have the Kaldra. I am just going to Solitude that immediately. It gives my opponent good value. See how they want to respond to this. I assume they'll ping and kill my Stoneforge Mystic. That's fine. At this point, I'll go ahead and put in a Lion Sash. And this Lion Sash is going to royally fuck up my opponent. Like, potentially just lethal them next turn. Oh, great. Oh, they found a Wormcoil engine. I don't think I'm going to beat Wormcoil plus Karn exiling Lion Sash. I'm in fact confident enough that I am not going to do that I will concede here. I need to check if Ensnaring Bridge is modern legal. It is modern legal, which probably means that I have to board in the Cathar Commandos. Also gets rid of an artifact, right? Yeah. Okay. I need these. This is the stuff that I want, along with these. Get rid of some number of Solitudes here. They didn't necessarily feel great. I guess I need some for Wormcoil engines. Honestly, kind of hoping that the game's mostly over at that point. Actually, it's not like Giver is super fantastic. That's just something that's going to get eaten by removal. Maybe I'll play a Recursion, Sword, and one more piece of equipment. This is more weapons than I'd like. Yeah, this is reasonable. It's not the disruptive hand that I want, though. But I have a really good endgame off of Vile. Like, I Flicker Wisp out of land, I Skyclave a Karn or whatever. But I don't really love trying to be the beatdown with Cauldra here. But I don't think I am supposed to throw it back at the same time. This deck can just cleanly answer a Cauldra with a big Karn minus, for example. Alright. Unfortunately, I believe I am still supposed to get Cauldra, because haste is the thing. I have a whole lot of power. We're just hoping my opponent doesn't play another natural land. Yep. Alright, this goes up. This land drop is rough. I'm thinking about whether or not I just want to put Batterskull in this turn at instant speed, and then Cauldra next turn. I don't think I want to do it that way. I think I just want to hit now, because my plan may change if I draw another land. Because if I draw another land, I can play Archon and then Flicker Wisp out a land. It's also unfortunate that I don't have an Arbiter or didn't have a third land to be able to Skyclave the map. There's a lot of ways that could have gone better for me. Alright, this goes up to 3. For sure. Okay. I will hit for 5. My opponent drops to 10. Then end step. I will go ahead and Flicker Wisp out that land for a turn cycle. Oh, a Warping Whale. That's real good. Wasn't really expecting that. I've still got lethal next turn. It's exact lethal with Batterskull. Yeah, that's fine. Ooh, wait, hold on. How much is it to crack this? It's 5, right? Yeah, okay. So that is fine. Activate. Batterskull. Alright, there's the concession. Yeah, no changes here. Being on the draw is super spooky, though. Yeah, I'll totally keep this. Well, my opponent is mulliganing to 4. That's not to say that they can't do powerful things, but this is not the natural turn 3 Tron that they want in the matchup. That's one of my best draws for that turn. Going to open up a lot of mana later, which matters if I want to funnel mana into Stoneforge Mystic. Oh, they just found a sphere. Yeah, that's fine. File can go up. Go ahead and play a Plains and get this going. I am again going for Cauldra. It is just the greatest amount of pressure on my opponent for the circumstances where they don't have a Warping Whale or Spatial Contortion or whatever. Okay, 2 of the 3 Urza pieces. There is the Warping Whale. Things get a little more interesting this turn. I think I just blow up a land and intend on Archoning and Ghost Quartering and such. I don't think I'd tap out for Archon here, risk my opponent naturally just ripping Tower and then having access to 5 mana. Let's go ahead and take out this now. I have a Plains. And I'll call that good. End of turn, I'll put in Lion Sash and then grow it outside of range of Warping Whale. Sure, that's fine. Fine. Okay. End of turn. Yes. Lion Sash. Any permanent, right? Just checking. Yes. Go ahead and tick this up to 3. Decide whether or not I want to Stoneforge. I don't think I do. Well, I think I actually do think I do. Let's go ahead and do this. Yes. I pick up Recursion. Go to combat. Attack with Lion Sash. Grow Lion Sash by 1 by eating that. Drop them to 17. Ghost Quarter a land. And end of turn, go ahead and tap this. Play Archon of Emeria to deny another mana. And then next turn I Flicker Wisp out another land. Ooh, maybe not. Oh, okay. They went for my Stoneforge Mystic rather than my Aether Vial. Which is great for me, personally. Okay. Bam. How dead is my opponent if I just Flicker Wisp out Pithing Needle? 12 damage. I think I'm gonna play this like this. Exile this. Cash in for a very respectable amount of damage. And then end of turn, Flicker Wisp out a land just in case. Yeah, and then I've got lethal in the air by reconfiguring and equipping even if Giganta is played out. GG's. This hand feels action light to me, but 3 of these lands are kind of spells. And it seems like Stoneforge into Kaldra is rolling opponents with some degree of consistency. I guess I am finding that I'm not very excited about Vile. Alright. And my hand's real bad if this Stoneforge eats a lightning bolt. So, am I getting the Kaldra that just lets me win the game if my opponent doesn't have the bolt? Or am I getting the more conservative Sword of Fire and Ice for if they do have the bolt? I think I get the more conservative sword here. Damn it. Okay. Ledger Shredder is fine. Okay, sure. I will answer this creature more normally. Don't think I need to immediately Solitude that or anything. Always playing a Ganjo. I think I intend on a Ganjoing that in combat at some point. Or otherwise Skyclave Apparitioning it. I'm always putting in Sword of Fire and Ice. I play Aether Vial this turn, but I don't know that I'm always doing that. I think I'm certain enough that I'm going to do that I will play this other Vial. I think if I don't play this other Vial this turn, it's basically a dead card. Sure. Second Ledger Shredder is cool. Yep, but that's fine. I don't really want to 2-for-1 myself here when I have multiple removal spells for these things in hand. Yep. Sure. I will take that damage at 18. My opponent is representing a lightning bolt. Go ahead and tap this Aether Vial. This block bluffs a Thalia. Would elicit a potential response from my opponent. Sure. This goes up to 3. Goes up to 1. I don't think that I actually go for the equip this turn. I think I just Ganjo one of these and Skyclave the other. And I'm perfectly happy just chilling. Sure. Guess I can go ahead and attack into this, right? This is attacking or blocking. Yeah, let's go ahead and crash on in. Alright, fantastic. Go ahead and pass the turn there. Take your card. When it hits their land drop. That's fine. Very good. But it's fine. Alright. We will Aganjo the smaller one. That way there's no nonsense growing this one. But can I Field of Ruin too? No. Alright, so kill that one. Tap Vial. Yes. Skyclave that one. A weird spot regarding this Aether Vial. If I draw a land, I don't want this Vial ticking up. If I don't draw the land, I do want it ticking up. I think I just tick up both. Classic. I think I'm going for equips this turn. Yeah. I'm to equip on Stoneforge Mystic. Nice. This is going to be a 3-turn clock that is pro-red. Real good. That's great. Stoneforge Immediate Lion Sash is pretty legit. Stoneforge Surprise Cauldra is also pretty legit. I think going wide matters. Yes. Lion Sash. This just gives me such a good outlet for my mana. I will eat Ledger Shredder immediately and just shrink this thing. I'm not worried about Murktide Regent because of Solitude. Yeah, that's fine. Oh yeah, that's legal in this format. Wild to me that some things like Ragavan and EI are still allowed to exist here. Bell Snare in Exile, not really what my opponent is looking for. Yeah, I will eat the 3, that's totally fine. Unholy Heat is fine. The token that Skyclave Apparition gives is blue. That doesn't particularly matter. Both of these are going to go up here. Archon is cool. Okay, yeah, my opponent is just done. That's fine. I'm going to assume that I do the protection from red removal stuff. These cards aren't crazy. Like, technically this would do something against an EI. I'm not sure that I care. I mean, it's EI, so I care a little bit, but my plan is basically remove creatures and win the game with equipment. I don't think I care about, like, the taxation side of my deck very much, especially when I'm on the draw. I think I'm going to cut those 7 cards. Gives me these 5 creatures plus extra pieces of equipment if I feel like I can play that many. There's a creature count of 28 compared to my starting 30. Feel okay, but you know, I can have hands that have multiple of these, which isn't the best. Have extra flyers or any extra removal that I can board in. Sort of War and Peace isn't exactly great. It would be the last piece of equipment I probably find in most scenarios. Play like Athalia instead of that. Bumps the creature count up to 29. Alright. But this is where I want, like, my Path to Exiles or On Thin Ice. Oh yeah, I'll absolutely keep this. Says turn 1 Forge Tender, turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic, backing it up. But targeting themselves. Deciding whether or not they want to keep it or fetch. And the shock afterwards. Fine. Don't mind drawing extra basics here. My opponent did show me a Blood Moon last round. Yeah, Ragavan's in there too. Not surprised. Okay, no immediate Ledger Shredder. My Stoneforge Mystic might get countered this turn, but I don't really think I'm in the position to say anything about that. I think I just have to cast my spell. Do I want to play around Dash Ragavan, or do I want to deal 1? Okay. I think I want to deal 1. Like, it seems like 3 points of damage per turn is very respectable. Alright, I'm not getting through the Ledger Shredder in the short term. I could Aganjo it, but I think I would rather just use my mana to do this. Like, the Ledger Shredder looks relatively embarrassing while Archon is in play. Alright. Let's stop that. The Archon's relatively important. And I do have another Forge Tender coming anyway. I think Aganjo becomes a land drop. And now it's just which one of these do I want to play. I think it's the Vial. A little awkward. Because it's just slower. But again, the earlier you play a Vial, the more actual impact you get out of that card. Great, and my opponent has wasted 4 mana worth of stuff. And every time I get to just tick a Vial up a little bit further, it bodes well for me. Alright. Good stuff. My kind of hope is that my opponent casts a spell, either on my turn or their turn, and then I just get to do an uncounterable Solitude. 3 damage to target creature. First of all, Solitude is now uncounterable. Get that Ledger Shredder out of there. Second of all, Vial, Forge Tender, sack it, prevent the damage of the Abrade. And I've got, you know, now I have 5 power in play plus a backup Solitude. Alright, my opponent has finally gotten through the Archon. And they can start doing EI stuff. Finding an Unholy Heat. Sure. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not going to play this turn so that I can hardcast a Solitude. Yeah, that's fine. My opponent has a relatively stacked graveyard. The thing that's going to beat me is like a Marktide Regent backed up by a counterspell that gets my Solitude. All right. But, you know, that's an 8/8, so it's not like I can wait to cast this. Have to go for it. If their last card is a counterspell, it sucks. Oh, that's fine. I just put this on top, and I'll draw it. Pile goes up. Cast the Solitude. This does give my opponent 8 life, which is, like, not nothing. But if this is all my opponent has, they don't actually deal any damage to me. Fucking why? Is a Ledger Shredder. Not get a counter. Alright. This is gonna chill at 3 for the time being. Enters the battlefield, choose. Okay. Spell. So it can't just dunk one of my things immediately. I will cast this. I am going to attack to see if my opponent will not block this. I imagine they are going to block. Ooh, they are not going to block. Sure. I think I just let them go to their turn. A little weird. Dashed Ragavan. Sure. I think I'll do this. Yes. Flicker Wisp. Flicker Wisp target Solitude. It was a little differently than I saw this going in my head, but I don't want to just deal with this forever. I'm going to go ahead and trade for that. Alright, wasn't expecting to have to play around Dress Down. Is that I don't actually get to remove the Ledger Shredder. Guess if I knew that existed, I would have just removed his Subtlety on my own turn. Second Vial can go up. I'll crash in for 3, hold this Plains as a bluff. One's slipping a little bit. I have really good top decks, but I don't. Their third EI. Alright, that bolt's very good. I may lose this one for not playing around Expressive Iteration. Again, I have some absolutely insane top decks that can win this game with a single card, but my opponent has 2 cards in hand to kind of help mitigate that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Activate this. I think I do this now. I'm unsure which piece of equipment to get. I am going to go with Lion Sash. Alright. I will go to my opponent's turn with all this mana held up. Then start eating their graveyard. And do this in a way that fully plays around my creature getting lightning bolted. That's a 4/4, 5/5. This allows me to have a Cauldra-sized threat. Okay, cool. That's fine. Just slight mistake on my opponent's side. Like, they should still distribute some damage to Lion Sash. It's just totally free to do so. Alright. 6 in the air. Which is definitely scary. You already done that on your own turn. Go to that. A Solitude. What am I solituding? I can trade with Fury on the ground with Lion Sash. I can just take out Ledger Shredder in the air. Let's go ahead and do this. Alternatively, I can try to go for the kill by getting rid of Fury. That puts my opponent to 20. I can deal 6 this turn. 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 next turn. Theoretically lethal. I can go for the kill if I think I can become the beatdown. That might be better. Exile another permanent from their graveyard. Crash in for 6. I force my opponent to leave back a creature in a pretty good position. Just scarier if they have a chump blocker. Okay, sure, that's fine. Target. Who did that target? Targeted themselves. Sure. A Seasoned Pyromancer. Okay. Just a draw 2. It doesn't give them any elementals, which is nice. But it gave them the chump blocker that they needed. I need to remove that creature. No to both of these. Sure. Batter Skull. I think I ignore that. I think I'm just moving to Solitude and hoping they don't have a removal spell. Configure. Alright, they're digging. Alright. Crash on in. No blocks. But we're eating good today. Got the baubles. We're going after lands at that point. Alright, what's the total here? 12. Alright. That is a very big swing in terms of life total here. Rage Channeler. Counterspelling it. To put a counter on Ledger Shredder. Sure. Alright. Okay. Sure. Dash Ragavan is a little scary because it can actually hit removal from my deck. I don't think my opponent will have the mana necessary to cast it. Build a Ruin. Sure. Yep, this is fine. I have lethal if I draw something like a Flicker Wisp that just gets that creature out of the way. Yep. Activate. Yes. Skyclave. Alright, and there's the concession. GG. Didn't expect to win that one. That was tight. Okay. I have a hand of Magic the Gathering cards that has lands and spells, but the issue is white, 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 white. In this format, am I supposed to just keep hands that just play turn 2 Stoneforge because Cauldron is stupid? My gut feeling from today's matches is yes, but I have about 3 draws to hit a second white source, or I probably lose the game if Stoneforge does not do Stoneforge things. Okay. Alright, are we just running back the previous round? You get to draw your card. I will jam a Stoneforge Mystic. I will be finding the Cauldron. My opponent's blue source is not going to answer this card, so they will have to play a red source to do that. Oh, yeah. Otawara. Oh, sorry. I confused Otawara with Oboro in my head for just a second. Getting another land drop is fantastic. Alright, there's the Cauldron. And we begin. Petty Theft, sure. That's a fog. They still have to remove the Stoneforge, and they don't have red mana yet. Nice. We take those freebies. So I'm going to assume that I'm playing against the same deck that I was just playing against. I think I ended up with these 5 in and didn't board War and Peace. Harkening back to the deck tech for a minute where I was talking about shaving colorless sources from this deck, that, like, double Ghost Quarter hand is exactly the sort of reason why I'm so hesitant to play colorless utility lands in decks like Death and Taxes. Because every time you can't cast your white cards, you are at such a disadvantage. Because, like, they are tied to your removal and utility. This one's a straight up mulligan to me. It's already a 6-card hand, and I have no way to pitch something to Solitude. This is a perfectly reasonable hand. I am very unsure which card goes back. It's not a land. I'm keeping all 3 of my lands every time. I think I pitched the Solitude. I think after mulliganing, I'm just, like, not super excited about pitching a card, and I get really good against red removal. I get really good against graveyards. Ooh, that's gross. That's very strong. I'm unsure if I will play Stoneforge immediately on turn 2. Like, it's a little situational. Playing a Sanctifier Invec first and just making it so cards are less likely to go to the graveyard is good. EE for 1. Got it. Spellsnare is a card that exists as well. I think I'm going to just play Sanctifier Invec. If something gets countered, I would rather it be that than the Stoneforge. EE is a little weird here. Sanctifier Invec, though, can be a little bit awkward if my opponent just plays a big booty blue creature. Sure. Alright, we're chilling. Yeah. Go ahead and send in with both of these. Okay, that's fine. My opponent to 16. I think I'm now interested in Lion Sash. and just immediately eating a card. Okay, great. Again, we're trying to play around Lightning Bolt and get the Stoneforge to actually resolve and carry a game. EI is good here. Graveyard is not getting full. Kind of a big deal. Yep. Double Stoneforge. That's nice. Go ahead and bash in. Opponent goes to 14. I think I play another one of these as my bait spell. Alright, it resolved. Attempt a Stoneforge. It resolved. Fire and Ice seems fine. I don't know that I have to get Caldra and just make my opponent's Lightning Bolt better. A Petty Theft. That's fine. So on my next turn, I can just play Stoneforge and get a new Caldra. I would like. Okay, that's fine. Graveyard's on lockdown. Dash Ragavan is respectable. Sure. The Giver of Runes. That's cool. I'd like to draw a land. Flicker Wisp is real cute. I don't think I need to get that cute. Can save the Flicker Wisp for later. Alright. Now that I have another one of those back to block a Dash Ragavan. And continue to send in. Drop a Stoneforge. Pick up the Hasty Trampley Caldra. Put my opponent in a relatively awkward position. Dashed? Oh, you're gonna protect. Sure. That's a very aggro play. Okay, I mean, Skyclave is an answer, but they don't have white. I'd like to draw a land here. My ideal. Then I get to do some cute shit. Oh, but I was gonna like bounce my own Giver of Runes back to my side while also attacking with Caldra. I had so many things left to do. All right, that's it. We've reached the end of the league here. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Shaky thumbs up. I think I vastly improved the deck list that was handed to me, but I still don't feel good about the 75. After playing some matches, like, I definitely feel like I'm correct in assessing that there's too much in this graveyard hate category over here. I don't think I brought in any of these 5 cards in any round, and like maybe I should have versus the Rakdos deck, but it didn't feel necessary, or maybe if I had another game I would have considered it. And I do feel like these cards weren't necessary. Did I bring them in a couple of times? Yes. Would I rather them have just been extra removal spells? Also yes. That's probably my biggest complaint about the 75 is I feel like you need some extra either Path to Exile or on Thin Ice to just have additional removal spells. I feel like my margins were kind of tight. I don't know exactly what the format looks like to know whether or not Rest in Peace is better than something like Soulless Jailer or Containment Priest. Like Rest in Peace makes Lion Sash slightly awkward, for example, so like there's things to consider. Generally speaking, this felt fine, but I do feel like some of my success here is due to an absolutely unreasonable amount of experience with this archetype in other formats and also some errors on my opponent's end. I don't feel like this deck is very powerful. Like, it's synergistic, it does things, but I don't know that this is going to be at the higher tier of things that you can be doing in Modern. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. It helps out a lot. If you have any thoughts about the deck building or anything like that, would love to hear it. The Modern videos can always use a little bit of extra love in terms of engagement. All right, I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!